Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our bi-weekly webinar. And we do this every 2 weeks. And today we wanted to do something a little bit different. We do real assets investing. The acquiring business is considered real asset in our book. I'm Dr. Fasanya. I'm a pulmonary critical care physician and the CEO of Dr. Biz Capital. I'm going to be your host today. And we have Dr. Ozoude, who is a direct care orthopedic surgeon and CEO of Time Health Capital. Our joint goal is to empower and help fellow physicians and other high-income earners to achieve financial and time freedom. So our goal is to educate and impact our audience with skills and investment knowledge to improve their lives and ultimately achieve financial and time freedom. Like I said, our team, Dr. Chiagozie Capital, currently have about $4 million worth of assets under management. And this includes multifamily, self-storage, oil and gas, commercial real estate investment, and some business acquisitions too. We have about 1,800 multifamily units under management. So I'm going to move it on to Dr. Ozoude to introduce himself, and then we'll introduce our guest.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. As Bio said, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm based out of Houston, Texas, and I've been in practice for 10 years, 7 of which was employed. And now the last 3 years, I have been in private practice. As Bio said, I have a direct pay orthopedic practice. So I'm already into small business. I got my own small business that I own. But as he mentioned, I'm the CEO of Time Health Capital. We have 4 different properties that we are invested in, totaling about 75 million in assets under management and about just over 800 doors. My personal journey through real estate, though, goes across other asset classes. I've also invested in medical office building as well as agriculture and farmland and mineral rights, which is a type of oil and gas investment. I saw the writing on the wall early in my practice, early in my career of where medicine was headed, and I became really inspired to develop alternate streams of income and get that time freedom and that financial freedom that Bio described. And I've gone on to invest in over 25 deals as a limited partner and 4 deals as a general partner. And I'm really inspired to help other physicians because I know they're also feeling the same frictions that I was feeling when I was in the medical system. And so Time Health Capital was started in order to educate and pool capital together and go after bigger deals so we can get to those financial goals. I know our guest tonight feels the same exact way, and we're really excited. She's one of the few guests that we've brought on more than once. We've had her as a guest. This is her second time coming back. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Chiagozie. She is a pediatric anesthesiologist and the founder of Savvy Docs. She has a passion for helping other doctors and professionals learn how to build wealth and additional streams of income. Now, over the last few years, she's helped many doctors and professionals get started investing in real estate, hosting conferences, both virtually and in person, and even published a book last year called Short-Term Rentals. More recently, however, has spearheaded a campaign to help doctors and professionals learn how to acquire small businesses, and today would like to show you the numbers that opened her eyes. Now, that was a high-level intro, so I'm definitely going to pass the mic to her. She has a lot of energy, a lot of knowledge, and we're really excited to bring her back. Please give us a more in-depth intro, and then also let us know about the small business acquisition side of investing.
Good evening, everyone. Hi. Okay, so I am super excited to really hang out with you all this evening. Like you said, I can have quite some energy, but I tend to like to read the room first. Okay, thanks for having me on, Via and George. I really appreciate being brought back. Like he said, I am Chiagozie Fawole. I am a pediatric anesthesiologist. I am based in the Syracuse, New York area, where I live with my husband and 3 girls, ages, how old are they? Question, 3, 7, and 10. Totally blank there for a second. But this evening, though, in the last 4 to 5 years, I've been really working with other doctors, teaching them how to invest in real estate, how to do their own deals, initially we were doing long-term rentals, and then I think it was 2021, did a very hard pivot to really short-term rentals. And that was when I met George, and that was really when I started doing more, like I was a lot more visible, should I say, in our physician space. Then we hosted the Short-Term Revolution Conference, and 2 years in a row, and then even some in-person activities. But my passion, like he says, is really opening people's eyes to the opportunities that are out there. Is not so much to say, oh, look at me, here's what I'm doing, but it's usually more of come see what they're doing, okay, in case you want to do it too. So you'll see that theme kind of run through the different things that, that we've done. And this evening, the thing that has really captured my attention has been what I've seen in the business acquisition space, but the possibilities as well as the opportunity for professionals, doctors, whoever you want to throw in there. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you did mention about the pivot, and
Yeah.
I'm definitely curious kind of some of the inspiration behind that. What has got you interested in small businesses in particular?
So for me, it was the math. Okay. So back in 2020, I attended an online event by what's his name, Roland Frazier, where he was teaching, where he taught in 5 days, like how to acquire a business with low or no money down. And honestly, at the time, it seemed like a really interesting idea. It seemed, wow, this must be really cool. But it didn't seem like it was for me. So I basically went the next few years just thinking that was really nice. Like it was very like intellectually stimulating. And I learned a lot from the standpoint of things you can do, different strategies to acquire for low or no money down. But it wasn't until I actually went for something, it was in 2022, that I then saw the math. And the math was like this. Now, like I mentioned, okay, I do short-term rentals. And the hype for me with short-term rentals was the fact that you could acquire a short-term rental for just 10% down, as against on the traditional long-term rental apartment complexes that you did 20 to 25%. And so for years, that was just how excited I was about short-term rentals. But when I saw that you could also acquire a small business for just about the same 10% down, and I did the comparative math, it was one of those things where you saw one time and you couldn't unsee. Because here's how it pans out. Let's say, for example, I bought a great short-term rental. Like I'll use our first lake house as an example. That's one I always use. You buy it for, let's say, $400,000. If you bought it today, it'll be $500,000. So for ease of math, $500,000. So $500,000, 10% down for that is $50,000. Okay. All your furnishing costs, everything, you're probably going to be all in for somewhere around $70,000 or $80,000. Okay. Now, the way that I would buy a short-term rental, and I love a good short-term rental, don't get me wrong, I still love my lake houses. Okay. But a good short-term rental, you probably bought one at what I call the 5x multiple, which is that if a short-term rental will make you $100,000, then in my books, I would like to buy it for somewhere around 500,000. And this property that I'm using as my example does make about 100. So 97,000 was what it did last year. Okay. Now, $97,000 in top line revenue, profit on that, you're probably talking maybe 30, 35, 40, depending on the year and depending on your operations. Not shabby at all. Your cash on cash return on that, if you want to do that math, you were all in that first year with your furnishing and all for right about $70,000 to $80,000. You're making $30,000 to $40,000. That's a pretty sweet cash on cash if that's your metric. Not counting your tax benefits, not counting those other things, just for the ease of math. Okay. Now, we take those same numbers and move them over to a business. And when you learn that businesses are valued based on the profit that they make, okay, a business that you would acquire for $500,000, and that's a very small business, by the way, in the realm of business acquisition, right? That's a pretty small one. But just for the math, $500,000, you put down the same 10%, okay, so $50,000 and then some other transactional costs. A business that you would buy for $500,000, you probably have bought at either a 1.5, or 2x multiple, considering how small it's considered, which means that this business could be making on the lower end $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 in profit. Okay, so now our $30,000, $40,000 that I just talked about with the short-term rental just basically did a nice 10x on by simply going from buying a short-term rental to buying a business. Okay, and like I say, I love my real lake houses. Okay, like I go, like you like drive over there just to go check on the house because you just want to just be around the lake. You want to be in nice environment. But when I saw that math, it's like, all right, if your goal, so everybody has their goals, right? For some people, it's capital preservation. That's great. For some people, it's cash flow, okay? And depending on where you are in your medical career, depending on where you are on retirement spectrum, your goals could be different. But if you're in that phase where cash flow is your primary metric that you're trying to grow, I talk to a lot of people who talk about, I want to be able to cut back from work. I want to be able to reduce my time at work. I want to be able to do all these things. And in saying that, they mean I need something that generates me meaningful income, cash flow on a monthly basis. When I talk to those people, I'm like, I would love to sell you a short-term rental. I sure would love to sell you a short-term rental course, but I think what you really need is a business that cash flows. Okay, so that was what made me have that pivot. Now, one thing that I found though was that I learned this thing intellectually. Like I knew, I just gave you a timeline, right? 2020, 2022, right? I began actually searching in end of 2022, got so close to my first deal 2023, and then found, was it 2023? Yeah, end of 2022, 2023, found like a great short-term rental deal. So I ended up focusing on that for a while and then came back. But I found that like some of these things take time, right? And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get the word out so that those that need to be coming can start coming. Those that need to be adjusting their mindset, getting into the mode of I can do this too, can start doing that. But that has been the pivot that we've made.
So I hear cash flow, and what's crazy that I interview and talk to a lot of physicians just to get a sense of what their goals are.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing that comes up the majority of time is cash flow, because there's other things, right? Like tax benefits, and that's big on our list too for physicians and high income earners. But cash flow always seems to be the priority. It's that financial freedom component, and I think that's huge. So those are big cash flow numbers. What we intuitively think that there's some higher risks, because we know from other asset classes like oil and gas, which has high cash flows, that there's higher risk. So we need to know about these. What are
About the risk,
these
right?
risks?
Yeah. And that is one mantra that I hear a lot. And the mantra of high risk, high reward. And my experiences recently, even with my experience recently have made me really question what exactly is risk, right? Because if we have these mantras and then we question them, then we can actually think without the mantra. So I'll just say, for example, you know what? We'll put the mantra aside for a second, but we will address the risk with acquiring businesses. The number one risk is that somebody has to operate the business. Okay? If you go buy something that doesn't have a solid operator, or that the main operator, the person in whom the entire business resides, the one person disappears after the sale, say the owner, then you don't have a business. So part of the process is now determining which business you want to buy. And there, when I talk with one of my mentors, he has a buy box that he uses, and he says every line in this buy box has come from an experience that I had to pay for with hard hard cash. So when he gives the buy box and then you come with him because deals and you're like, oh my gosh, this looks so good. Does it meet the buy box? No, but it's so good. I'm like, I know how to scale it. I know what I'm going to do. And it's okay. So in saying that, then the question that I'm sure people are asking will be, what will this buy box be? Okay. The buy box that I'm currently working with is top line. The first thing is revenue. Okay. How much money does the business already make? So right now, I will not look at a business that's not making at least $1 million. And if I were to be really honest, because of the other numbers that I have in mind, I probably wouldn't look at it if it's not doing at least 2, for the other reasons that I will mention later. Okay, so number 1 is top line revenue, which is between right now I'm doing 1 and 10 million. Some people will say 1 to 5 for a beginner. And the reason for that range is that the 1 to 5 range, they're small enough that the big guys aren't looking for them, but they're big enough that the mom and pop people just trying to trade in the community aren't really going for them because they're bigger. Okay, so 1 to 5 puts you in that nice sweet spot where you're basically like a professional coming in to buy a business. Top line. The reason for the $1 million a minimum revenue is that less than that, you're usually talking to people that solopreneurs, okay? People that have maybe built the business around themselves. John with his van, he's done a really good job, but he's on dollars. He is doing fine himself, but everything rests on him. Okay, so 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, depending on who you're talking to. Then the next thing there is 10 employees or more. And the reason for that number is that if you have less than 10 and the owner leaves, let's say you buy the business and the owner goes away, then less than 10, there's a chance that 1 or 2 may leave. If it's only 5 people in the business and 2 people leave, that's half your staff, right? If it's only 3 people in the business and 2 people leave, it's now you and 1 person, right? In considering your risk, keeping that in mind, who's the team running this place? Like, who's running this place, right? 10 employees or more. Now, there are certain businesses that you can justifiably say, okay, they don't have 10 employees, but they don't need 10 employees. Let's say dispatch type businesses where like you really just need 1 person. Oh, hey, you really just need 1 person dispatching things. Like you don't need to like stuff the place with people just to justify the numbers. But for the most part, for the service-based businesses where they need people like 10 employees or more. The next one there will be 10 years or older. Now, when I first started, I was doing more of 5 years or older. And the reason for that is longevity. Okay. It's a case of, number 1, a lot of businesses fizzle out in the first 5 years. That's number 1. Number 2, when they're older, like 10 years or more, then they have established roots in the community where they are, where people know them. They have word of mouth clients. They have some visibility, right? At least if they've lasted that long, then they're probably doing something well. If they're making over $1 million, they've been 10 years, they're at least 10 years old, and they have 10 or more employees, it's like a nice base, right? The next thing will be 25 profit margins of 20-25% or more. Now, this is the one that like when I see some, I'm like, oh, but it's 17%. Can we still do this? And it's okay. Sure, you can, but how are you going to pay for the business, right? Without the margins, when it comes to sellers' discretionary earnings, for example, or EBITDA, as you may call it, in certain settings, you may not have enough room to pay your debt if you buy the business with debt. So I got into the buy box when you asked about risk, because in explaining what my buy box is, I'm explaining how I'm able to not de-risk. You still have to do your due diligence. And I think the last one, there's a 5th one. It'll come to me later, but there's a 5th one. Those are the big 4, if you may. And then of course, after that, the next portion of de-risking is that even after you have all those parameters, you have a nice due diligence period where you work with accountants, attorneys to really get in the weeds.
I really like that you pointed out the top one being the operator. and the systems in place, especially for this group, a lot of busy professionals. What we don't want is another job, because we got jobs that we love and that keep us busy. And
which is one of the questions here. Yeah. Basically, yeah. If you're the absentee owner or your small business, or you select the right people, how do you select the right people to manage it?
Yeah. So right now, my priority has been searching for businesses where there is an existing number two person to take over the helm of affairs, or that the owner is actually willing to stay on for a period of time. We actually had a deal down in Texas back in September that really looked very promising. We went down there, but then by the time we left, we were like, this owner looks really burned out. He looks like he's ready to be done. We don't think he's going to last through a due diligence period and like a transition period. And that was actually how we dropped the deal, because the guy gave just lots of flags that he was ready to be done. And so when that was going to be a huge risk if we went ahead with that one, so we left that one alone. But overwhelmingly, previously I had seen something like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to go hire someone. And recently my mentor said to me, he said, I don't close on anything until I know who's running it. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, because if I close on it and then I start trying to figure out who's going to run it, that's my money getting burned in that shuffle of trying to figure out who's going to run it. The initial criteria, I even just spoke with somebody this evening, and part of why I'm really excited about that conversation is that she already has someone that is already being groomed to basically run the place. And she told me the person's strengths, she told me the person's weaknesses, she told me, okay, this is where she's good at, this one you probably have to do yourself. And I'm like, okay, that part I can actually handle. But those are the conversations that I want to have early on. But what this means is that in your searching, you will come across a lot of great businesses, but don't have that person. But you, unfortunately, if your goal is to not be the operator, you have to pass. Because your mind will, I can tell you, your mind will, and particularly how creative we are as physicians, as professionals, our minds will say, oh, I'm just going to. I saw an ophthalmology practice a few months ago. Amazing gentleman trying to retire. I wanted to buy the business. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go find an ophthalmologist and I'll put them in there and I'm going to do this. And I asked myself, I was like, seriously, let's just be honest right now. If you don't find said ophthalmologist, then what? Like I said, this guy has built something formidable. He's making good money. I'm like, but it's not my job to fix. This is something that should have been, and really, if you're here and you have a practice, this is really what you should be building in from now, right? You need to be working on your number 2, your number 3, on taking yourself out of it, because that's what makes the business sellable. If you're it in the business, you could sell your business for 1x, 1 times your profit. And a lot of medical practices, unfortunately, sell at that multiple. And private equity comes in and they end up buying our practices for 1x. And by simply installing the people, they're able to now package it up and sell it for 3, 5, 6, 7x. Meanwhile, the people that built it, because they didn't take the time to build the teams, sell it for 1x.
Yep. I've definitely seen that. Medical practice is one of the toughest one because it centers around you a lot. And I wish Richard was here. He's our business analyst. So he goes through the analysis of which business to buy. We've done some few deals together. So yeah, but for medical practices, that is the single most important problem.
Yeah.
Is you see the practice, no matter how much revenue, they make it 5 million, doesn't matter. But if it's just one person, also the name matters a lot. If you remove that person, suddenly it dies down, your revenue, profit, because they want to see that person.
You want that person. Yep.
So if you have not let your clients or patients know that this is our protocol, you're going to see a nurse practitioner, you're going to see other doctor. This is the way practice works, and they're used to that over time. You will not have a business. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's something that we almost like in this my campaign, it's like also letting the doctors know, if you're building a practice, don't do medicine or service and build a team from now. Building a team, it takes time. Even with my coaching stuff, it's like building a team is like, I can just do it. But then you realize If you do it and your team member can't do it when you don't have the time to do it, then you've robbed your own self. You've robbed yourself because you didn't want to take the extra time to train someone, to have somebody else do it. Yeah.
Somebody said, do you ever consider businesses out of your home state?
Yeah. So initially, when I first started looking, I was looking primarily locally. And then when I raised my buy box, it actually for a while, we were only looking at 8 to 20 million for a while. And so there weren't a lot of those locally. But and of course, at that price point, you're definitely looking for something with the number 2 in place. The one that I spoke with this evening is also out of state, but she already has a number 2 in place. So I look out of state, and I think part of my confidence looking out of state has been my experience with the short-term rentals, which we ran our first batch of short-term rentals from all the way down in Dallas, Texas. I never saw them once. We currently have one in Crystal Beach in Texas right now. I've learned over the years that if you find a solid operator, that's the key. That's the key. Then it's possible. Now, this is new territory for me with the businesses. And so my preference is if I could find something within an hour drive, fantastic. But in anything, like for the ones that are out of state, it's like my first question is, okay, who do you have on ground? They'll ask me, do you want to move? I'm like, right now, the plan is not really to move. Who do you have on ground? Who do you have on ground? I'm not even bashful about it. Tell me who you have on ground because I need a solid operator in place. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Someone said, as physicians, we like being the subject matter experts. Most of the businesses out there are not related to our specialty. How do you deal with that discomfort? I'm going to say something and then I'll give it back. So
Yeah.
I actually purchased a car audio company. So car audio company was done in 2023 or so. And it was from someone who I'm not like a baller like Dr. Chiagozie. It was some guy was making like 40,000, 50,000. He has a waiting list. He's very hardworking, but he does everything by himself. He's the guy in the front, he's the guy at the back. He goes under the car to fix it, and he comes to the front with the dirty hands and shake people's hands. So, but I know he's hardworking though, and fixes our cars. And then, just talk to him. And then basically I got the company, absorb them into the new company and give him like a percentage ownership. Like I think 30% or so. So that's how it happened. So yes, now you have an operator that basically you can operate, but now you stay at the back and just do what needs to be done. Hire a secretary or somebody in the front and hire like somebody that can advertise and things like that to improve the operation. And then it's definitely did well. Got my money back in the year. I had to inject like $85,000 into it. I got it back and then now getting the profit. But yeah, so that's probably what it is. Now, in terms of the discomfort, obviously, if you have someone like that, they're like a workhorse by nature, and you say, look, you make 38K, what do you feel like making 60K now? With less work, actually, to him, because now he doesn't have to do everything all at once. So you just have to do the analysis properly and make sure you can do it, and then I know that they're good for it. Yeah, so that's probably what I'll say. That's just my experience in that. So you deal with the discomfort finding someone that's super good. To be honest, I don't even know enough about car audio, and I wanted to. I want to because it's like they build the loudspeakers, they go for competitions, and they want me to come to the competition where they want to see which is the loudest car possible. This is like insane. And you never know there's people that want to do those things, but the people there, cash, they push you up, they like put speakers in my car, but they love it. They go to competitions, they win, they won states. The guy won like a national championship or something like that. So anyway, so find subject, some that are very good at the subject matter, and you don't have to, they just collect. You still have to meet with them, and sometimes you have to solve the problem within the, as a CEO. So that still takes some of your time, but just like real estate syndication, sometimes many deals you just meet with people, you meet 1 hour or 2 hours a week and discuss how's your operations going and things like that. So.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that exactly, even what you just said there. When I first started with real estate, our first deal was a 12-unit apartment complex. I knew zilch about property management, but I was able, God really blessed me back then, actually. I found an amazing property manager that basically ran the entire thing. He would just send me reports at the end of the month, and my job was to go in there. So the thing is, the mindset is really very similar, particularly those of you who are in the real estate space already. There's skills that you already have that you probably didn't realize that you were building, which is the skill of delegating, of requiring something of someone and then going back and checking in on them and asking them, okay, how did this go? One of the people that I first learned this from was said, you want to be above the business and not in the business. So there are some core skills that you would learn, all right? And they say everything is learnable, everything is figure outable, as what's her name, Harry Folio, whoever her name is, says. And that is that right now, if you have a business, then you already have some of those transferable skills. If you don't have a business yet, but you're practicing in medicine or in your profession, it's really just human to human interactions, right? Which you deal with every day. It's usually just personal understanding people and knowing how to communicate your needs and how to communicate the things that you actually want to happen. But in the unique skills that relate to the individual businesses, the key there will be in the operator, which is part of why that's also very important. Preferably if it's someone that's already in the business or already is familiar with the business operations. But another way to offset that is if you find somebody in the community, in your networking groups that has experience in that area, particularly during the underwriting phase, to bring along with you. Like when we were going to see the deal in Texas back in September, my mentor came along with a gentleman who really is into like inventory stuff. Okay. Because that was a deal that was very inventory heavy. It was a rental company they did over 9 million. They had just a massive warehouse. Like I describe it like a Home Depot plus. Okay. So imagine walking into something that's bigger than your local Home Depot and being like, holy smokes, just warehouse full of stuff. And this gentleman has expertise in that area, like in just inventory management. And so he was able to sort of identify certain holes and areas of risk that he felt. I think actually he found out that like that the systems that they had wouldn't make our being able to actually keep track of what they had easy. We'll have to basically build out an inventory system. And he was like, yeah, that's going to be a thing. So basically, I'm saying that like his expertise helped us identify that additional risk. That if we had gone there, I'll simply have been like, oh my gosh, like just in awe of the size of the place. But he was able to now basically see where the pitfalls were in that deal. Yeah.
Similar
Oh,
to just real estate due diligence. You hire someone, they go
yeah.
there to check each units. You pay for it though, but hey.
Yeah, it's also similar when we say have a property manager at the beginning during the due diligence phase to go look at a real estate deal with you. Someone who knows the industry to go check out and kick over rocks and see what's really going on. There's a really good question from one of the guests here about lending. Is there any issues if the lender suspects there's absentee owner? Will banks lend to you if you're an absentee owner? Do you have to show that you're competent or that's your specialty? How does that work?
So the banks will lend variably depending on your expertise, your pre-existing expertise, and will actually want to show you to show them who the operator is going to be. So if you're not going to be there as a present operator, then they want to see that operator. Like they want to know who the operator is, what their expertise is, and depending on where that person is in the stack, you may be seeing either higher or lower down payment requirements, particularly if it's like SBA lending that you're thinking about. And by the way, I just put in the chat there the 5 things. I mentioned 5 things in the buy box. So if you want to get that, it's right. It's my free gift for you being on here this evening.
So
I saw another one.
Mhm.
As physician investors, for the bank, it's also just like real estate, depending on who your prior relationship, also how local you are. like for me in this town, not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm just saying, if I ask for money, I get money. So if I'm from the bank, so because they know who you are, they've seen you do deals, they've done deals with them, you shake a bunch of hands, and so it's just dependent. So that's number one. And also if the business can stand on its own. If the business already just having want to get a loan for real estate, and then it's already, they know that cash flow is there, it's there for the past 3 to 5 years, it's looking good. So you can use those and then there is assets that can stand. So many of the business will also have assets that can stand for some of the loans. So I believe that, so like they used to say, find a good deal first, whether it's business, real estate, and then the money will come, essentially. So as a physician investor, we're obviously not looking for a job. So how are you sourcing businesses with valuation more than 1 million, with operator and with EBITDA that support the operator, debt service, and cash flow? So
That's good. That's a really good one. I didn't even see that question. That's a really good one. So right now, I search quite a few websites, but the biggest repository right now is still Biz Buy Sell. It's still Biz Buy Sell. Biz Buy Sell, if you just, so the way that when I was searching for real estate, the way that I would search would basically be when I'm in buying mode, I basically just go on Zillow, and every day for a few minutes every day, I'm checking to see what's on. Similar thing with now our acquisition process that I just go on the sites and I check. Because of the criteria that we have, you have to sift through many, because there'll be many there that would not meet the buy box. Sorry, let me see if I can see the actual question so that I can.
it's from Ifeanyi.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay. Yeah. So really so actually, you know what? Let me show you live since we're here. And I oftentimes do this when I have our sessions. I just ask somebody to throw out a city that you're in so I can search for you live.
What site?
I use Biz Buy Sell. Biz Buy Sell is the first one that I use. There are others, but Biz Buy Sell has. Now, in our current community, one of my mentors has a software that scrapes a bunch of 850 websites or so. That's what I'm currently using right now. That app is like $800 a month, but he offers it as like a bonus when we have our launches and stuff. So that's how I'm using it now. But Biz Buy Sell is still the biggest, even on that one. So that's why I like to show Biz Buy Sell. So who wants to throw out a city? Columbus, Ohio. Oh, there. Okay. All right, so I'll do Pittsburgh because that was the first, but then I'll also do Columbus because that was the first one that I saw. All right, so let's see. So this is always fun actually when I do it because we almost always find something. Let's do Columbus, Ohio. Okay, so I said the buy box was what, 10 employees, 1 million to 5, 1 million to 10. Oh, 25% profit margin. What's the other one? 10 years or older. So the first thing that I will normally do when I come on Biz Buy Sell is I'll go to more filters and I'll go under cash flow and I'll just filter it. Actually, when I do this, I just go here and I filter to 750 because I'm like, by the time I pay my debt service, my goal is to replace my salary, whatever, in one transaction. So I start with 750, I hit apply, and then I can start talking. I'm looking at this. All right. So let's just use this one right here, auto body and repair shop with real estate, right? I click on that. Top line, right? The first thing is their gross revenue. So they're doing 1.8 in revenue. That meets the buy box. It's above 1 million. It's less than 5 or 10, depending on which one you want to use. The cash flow is about 50%. Actually, it's about, what is 800 divided by 1.8? It's almost 50%, which is pretty solid. Okay, so already it has checked off 2 things. It was established in 1997. That means it's more than 10 years old. So it's checked up the third one. Now let's see how many employees it has. Let's see if it's scrolled. Employees, 4.5. Okay, so 4.5 employees, that's a little on the lower side for me. Okay, but I'm asking myself, okay, is there a reason? Can I run an auto body and repair shop with 4.5 employees? For me, this one I'm going to pass on, okay, because of the employee part. This could be a great business for someone, okay, but just not for me, because in my head, 4.5 employees means if the owner, sometimes the owners count themselves as the employees, by the way. Which is really funny. Like you're like, oh yeah, like you really are an employee there now, really? Like seriously? But 4.5 employees means that 4.5 employees, that must be like some part-time folk in there. So that means that if the owner has a son in there, maybe a brother or a cousin, right? And then the owner sells the business, those folks are probably going to leave, which will mean that I'm left with maybe just two, like the front desk person, right at the end of the day. But assuming this business had 10 people or 7 or 9, some like higher number than 4.5, I'll probably then just put in my information here. I'll send a message to this broker, Rick Barth. Rick is going to send me an NDA to sign. I'll sign the NDA. I'll ask him for financials. He'll probably send me what's called a SIM, a confidential information memorandum, which will break down everything about the business, how they operate, etc. And then if I decide that I want to go ahead, Rick can then do a call with the actual seller. He may ask me for proof of funds of some sort. Some of them do that, some don't. But then we can take steps further. So on this particular one, this is almost a go for me, except for the fact that it has this. I also haven't even read all of this stuff here because like I'm still in just like screening mode. Like, should I even spend any more time on this? If not, let's go on to the next one, which was, I think it was Houston, right? That I said. Who was that? Let's see the chat. Was it
Houston or Pittsburgh?
Would you ever buy out of state?
I would consider it, yeah, if it has all those things in place, the operator, all those things, yeah. Okay, so Houston, all right. Oh, Pittsburgh, actually.
Most people would say your first business, same thing like your first real estate.
Yeah.
Would be close to you, in my opinion. However, obviously, if it's something you can't really, it's just too good to be true. But
yeah. So let's try for Pittsburgh. We still have that filter in place for 750 as a minimum cash flow because that's minimum at this point. Let's see what we find. Okay, this one, I know this business. I've actually spoken with the person. Is this the one? This one is bad debt. Actually, no, I haven't heard this one, but I've been seeing this one for a long time. Okay, they have bad debt. There are different ways to buy businesses. You can buy businesses and turn them around. Multiple mentors that I've worked with right now are like, you don't need those ones right now. Okay, don't try to be a savior. Just go get your cash flow straight because the turnarounds, some people really like major in turnarounds. Those of us that are trying to get cash flow, just stick to the one that's already working. Okay, there's no need to try to be a hero. There's no need for value add is great.
yeah,
Particularly
that deep value add.
fixer-uppers are great in real estate, right? But if you're gonna buy a fixer-upper, it needs to be a pretty fixer-upper, like the kind that like already is minting money, and then you can now add your sweet sauce to now make it shine. But yeah, okay. So anyway, let me just scan this. Okay, so this is beauty products brand distributor. That's in the running. Let's just scroll down a little bit and see which one actually catches my attention. Modular wall containment. I don't like restaurants. I don't do restaurants.
Absolutely not.
I ignore restaurants. Okay, this one is a manufacturing company. Let's see, 824. Okay, so actually the 1.6 one that I just saw was actually modular wall containment. All right, let's see. Oh no, they're asking 467 and their cash flow is 1.2. This looks like there'll be a story inside, but for the sake of time, I wouldn't go in there right now.
It's suspicious.
It does, right? So let's see this one that actually looks like something. So this is a manufacturing company. Oh, there you go, sale pending, right? But let's see if this would have been a go to start. So I haven't even looked at the asking price, okay? Start with revenue, they're 2.3, okay, that checks the box. Cash flow is 824. So that is more than 25%. So yes, that works. Let's see the number of employees. Seller is currently turning down some work. It doesn't say seeking retirement. Okay, so it doesn't really say much in here, but if it's seeking retirement, then it's subtle in there that it may meet the buy box eventually. So if this were something that were of interest to me, I'll reach out here, but the broker here has particularly left out reasonable information that could actually be useful. So anyway, but you see how that's the initial scanning process. That's the initial sort of don't waste your time type thing, because there's a lot on these platforms. And if you sit there trying to justify multiple things, previously I was using my like creative mindset to try to like make a deal work. And recently I heard a quote with a mentor of mine that said, what I actually do is to try to disqualify a deal as quickly as possible. Okay. And in disqualifying a deal as quickly as possible, you're able to remove things that will otherwise waste your time, because you're looking for that a great business, not just an okay or just any kind of business.
So I have a question, and this is the same thing as the question by a holder, is because, like for real estate, right? We don't even go, I don't go, like, I don't remember last time I looked at Zillow. I probably 6 years ago. Okay. If I see something on the market for a year, I would be like, maybe they're softing now. I can lowball them now. But I'm never gonna do that. I do like off market. So now you say, what are the best places to source business for sale? Like, and are the ones like Biz Buy sell, the ones that have been passed over by private equity? So that's the question that like I want. But for me, right now we have someone locally who they buy and sell businesses, and reach out, work with them, and I talk to them once in a while. I would just be like, look, if you find something there to sell, run by us.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
So
and they always have off-market deals too.
It's a similar thing that you build relationships with the brokers. I've also done my own direct mail campaigns and to try to reach the owners before they even hit the market. But I wouldn't say it's just like it is in real estate, where the good ones get picked first. The person that I spoke with today, now for sure, there's behind the scenes transactions happening for sure, which is why you want to build those relationships. But like the person that I was talking with today, her business got listed about now 13 days ago, and she currently has 15 people looking at it. So it's similar, where like you want to catch them either when they just come on the market or when they have stayed for a while. Like finding them in the middle when they're just like 2-3 months old, you'll just be in the mix with everybody else. So I also just watch them for a while as well to see, like I have a guy that I reached out to with my direct campaign, actually began talking with him, but he wanted like 17 million on a business that was at the time only doing about $1 million in profit. So I was like, no, like the math won't even math. But as of the last time I spoke with him, which is at least a year and a half after I initially initiated contact with him, he was still trying to sell the business. Now his number has come down, but it's still not low enough to the point where I think we can transact with him. But I text him every now and then and I'm like, hey, how are you? Because a lot of sellers have very high expectations of their business, right? It's been their baby. They've worked so hard at it for the last God knows how many years. Their business makes 10 million a year. So the business, of course, has to be worth 17 million. I mean, it makes 10 million a year, but that's top line. Okay, so it takes the ones that you source off market, they do transact eventually, but you need a good dose of patience for those ones. The ones you find on the market, the broker has already packaged them. They have a SIM, they have financials, they have all those things ready. So the way we're working it right now is okay, I want to buy a deal like in the next 3 months, in the next 4 or 5 months, I'm on market. But I like to buy a deal, like I'm building my pipeline for next year off market.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We have a couple of SBA questions. Can you share your deal structure where you use seller financing? And then can you share the process of acquiring an SBA 7A loan? What is the minimum requirements? And I want to purchase a SBA loan by putting down the smallest amount possible.
Okay, so 100% seller financing, people talk about it a lot. It is real, it's possible, okay? You just have to find the right seller. Now, you wouldn't just go on Biz Buy Sell and just expect that the first seller that you speak with will be open to that. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to say this as a way to make it sound like it doesn't happen, but it's a tool in your toolbox. Seller financing, what you will find more often is seller financing as a part of the stack. Okay, actually, a leverage buyout actually is what you find pretty often. Where, say, for example, the business has like trucks and real estate and all these other assets, and then you can refinance or you can finance or leverage all those assets, get a loan from the bank, pay the seller a sweet enough down payment, and now they're willing to hold paper for 10%, 20%, 50%. Now, the right seller, though, I have come across people that have bought their businesses with barely anything out of pocket from a seller financing standpoint. That's usually a very motivated seller. It's also usually somebody who really just wants to create their retirement income, as against somebody that's moving on to something else. So the motivation of the seller is usually what's going to drive what kind of financing that they would accept. And in fact, I had a mentor that would even have you like create what he called a MUD score, which was the M was for motivation. Okay. And I don't remember how the remaining two things were, but if you can find a motivated enough seller, you can really build a bunch of creative financing strategies in. The process of acquiring a 7A loan, I've not gone through that process fully yet. But one thing that I have found though is that if you have is that you want to work with a broker that has a loan broker that has relationships with different banks.
Do you need pre-qualification, like SBA pre-qualification?
Yeah, so when you talk to brokers, particularly the ones that are newer, so there for a lot of states, there is no like training or like unique training like realtors to become a business broker. So you come across brokers of different shapes and expertise. The ones that know what they're doing usually don't ask you for that, because SBA wouldn't pre-qualify you for anything. The banks will pre-qualify the business. They need a business in hand. It's the business that they're trying to fund, not you. Now, your personal stuff, if you have bad things on your credit or whatever, that wouldn't bode well for your being able to get the loan. But generally speaking, they're heavily focused on the business itself. So like, I haven't gone to any bank to ask for any SBA pre-qualification, because it's not like with real estate where you need that kind of like pre-qual letter or pre-approval letter to go show the home seller.
Yeah. Just few more.
Yes, thank you. That's it right there. That's protege right there.
As far as the returns go, how do you, I'm assuming you are already into real estate investing. How do you compare business operation and acquisition with real estate as far as the returns?
So yeah, so earlier I did describe that math, right? That with real estate, so I do short-term rentals. I love my short-term rentals, and they make good money. But if you were to compare apples to apples, it's like a 10x. That's basically the summary. If you were to really compare apples to apples, like 10% down, 10% down, it's almost 10x. But it's also not a secret though. Anybody will tell you that most people would at least tell you that businesses fund real estate. If you want cash flow, you either either buy or build a business, because businesses generate more cash flow, generally speaking. But then when you want to park money, you park it in real estate. Now, for us in medicine or whatever, as physicians, our business, our cash flow machine is usually our jobs, right? That's where we print our own money. From an investment, yes, that's it. From an investment standpoint, if you were to compare apples to apples, it's the same thing. Like businesses generally generate more cash flow. Good businesses generally can generate more cash flow than real estate, if you want to compare apples to apples.
Yeah,
So
just to
related.
agree to that, that's exactly the same formula that Grant Cardone uses. So he has like a lot of businesses and he parks his money in real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's exactly what you want to do. Especially with private practice, essentially you're doing that model. Now I went from employed model to private practice. And now I see, now at first it was fun just using the depreciation on real estate. But now I'm finding out that probably by next year, I will have problem again of where to park the money. So
Park money.
this year, I actually started a second location and I bought the building, actually cash. So after a while, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to pay this 8% interest. So you do eventually have to figure a way to expand and use that money. But then real estate is going to be one of them. You can buy a plaza or commercial where you use 2 of the offices and then you rent out the other 3. But now you get more cash flow again. Now you need to figure out how to spend that cash flow. So it's nonstop forever.
A cycle.
Yeah.
Speaking about cash flow, the question came up about what exactly is meant. Is it the SDE or the EBITDA, the top line income?
On Biz Buy Sell, it varies. So when I just see cash flow, I just take it as either SDE or EBITDA. And for those who don't know those terms, SDE stands for seller's discretionary earnings, which is basically what the seller takes home at the end of the day. It's usually used in the smaller businesses, while EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, which is effectively the same thing, except that the seller's salary is built into the expenses. They're basically the measure of the same thing. When you see it on Biz Buy Sell, the only way you know exactly what it is when they actually send you the SIM or the financials. That's how you know which one they're referring to. There's one question here actually that about the Amazon fulfillment businesses and FedEx routes for sale. In December, we launched this training program thing, and somebody brought a FedEx deal. The FedEx deal looked great. Now, I'd been seeing the FedEx deals this whole time, and I was like, there are quite a few of them on here, but there was just something about the idea. I personally I didn't want it like a franchise type business. I didn't want a business where somebody would dictate how I manage it. So I stayed away from them generally just from that standpoint. But somebody brought that deal to our session, and Mike, my mentor, was like, he was like, actually, apparently a few years ago, FedEx routes were like amazing. But recently they basically just changed things out of the blue and squeezed their operators. So when you look at the financials, you will see great historical numbers, but what's actually happening is that there has been a squeezing happening, and I don't know all the details of it, but they're basically requiring more of those folks, knowing that they're their sole customer, right? They can do whatever they want to do. And I think the same thing is happening with Amazon fulfillment thing as well. That whereas they used to give them, I don't know if it was like 45 cents or 45 something per mile, now they've reduced it. They've reduced the amount of time that they can wait in between, also squeezing those ones on that end, which is why they're now flooding the market. Please confirm EBITDA is a bit easier. Yes, it's not really, I won't say it's easier. It's usually that it's bigger companies. And the question is, for those on the replay, please confirm EBITDA is a bit easier because they play games with add-backs and SDE. Yes, the thing is, the same people that play games with, so basically the concept there is that when the brokers list all the expenses and stuff, they get the net income. When they want to tell you the seller's discretionary earnings, they'll go back and add everything in the expenses that they feel was just the seller's personal expense, something like that, right? Things that they feel you wouldn't have to incur as expenses, which will then be your SDE. Now, the thing is with EBITDA, they also do the same thing on the SIMs because they will also then come back and tell you this is the EBITDA, but here is the adjusted EBITDA. So they basically play the same games on both of them, that it's still the same thing. Yeah. Yes, so actually Lajide here says, hopefully there should be more businesses coming in line. That right there is the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing right now. There are two things. On one end, I feel like every doctor, and when I say doctor, if you're not a doctor, I'm not excluding you, okay? It's just that I talk to doctors more often. But every doctor, every professional needs a meaningful income stream that could easily replace their salary if anything were to shift. It's no longer a luxury. It's no longer a calling, like it's not just a hypey thing. It's actually a necessity considering how volatile our work platform has become. That's number one. Number two then is exactly what you just said there, is that right now we are in a major transfer of wealth from one generation that's been retiring for the last few years, but I think that we're entering the thick of it with the boomers retiring at a really massive rate right now, that even businesses that you currently use are at risk of just shutting their doors without somebody taking them over. I've interacted with people already. One of them who just shut it down. Another one was like, I am trying to retire. But they would just literally just shut the doors because they can't find a successor. Unfortunately, not all of them will meet the buy box. So some will close. But if you can be in there saving the ones, the good ones, the solid ones, the ones that are worth your time and effort, then you'll be able to win on one end as the head in the capital and all the benefits, but also do good in your community, sustaining jobs, keeping legacies alive, and really helping all that wealth of knowledge and information and experience get transferred to the next generation from the experienced sellers to you.
Love it.
Yep, that's what Richard said the same. We just actually acquired 3 companies last year based on that. Somebody was gonna retire. We had an electrical company. We got one last year. And then basically was this father thought the son was gonna take over. He's an electrician and everything. And there was a disagreement, which I feel bad for the father. And somehow the child, he just left the business, went to California. Now the dad, who was like 70, 80, almost 80 years old, is trying to manage it. And you can see the profit going down slowly over the past 2 years. But you know that they have a waiting list, but they just fulfill it. So that's another one that might be a little bit of value add in some way. The business is there. They've been around for 40 years. It's just what it is. You cannot find a successor. And it's at the risk of shutting down. And my partner actually has to go into business, unfortunately, himself, for a while, help them stabilize it as a consultant first. And then after that, the guy just want to buy it. After 6 months of you helping them out, and then he was able to get a good deal out of it. So anyways, yeah, actually doctors' offices, we see them closing down all the time. And that one, it's almost hurts me.
It breaks my heart. It really does. It breaks
my heart. Like I've seen the doctors, like primary care. There's one in town now now it just goes there 2 days a week now. And I'm like trying to look into it, like, man, is there a way for me to incorporate it into mine? But then it's already lower. If he has when he was still doing like 5 days a week would be better. But now it's laying off, and it's only a matter of time. It just closed up.
Yeah. And that thing you just said there is why I've been like I'm talking on one end here by the business, but I'm like, for those of you that have the practices, this is the time to put in the work. It's not when you're 70 and trying to really retire that you now start to learn now is the time. Get the people, get the team, hire other doctors. There are a few of us that are entrepreneurial, right? There are some people that don't want to be and that want to own it. Hire people. Get multiple people in there, do the work, because I had a lady last year, she had a GI practice. I looked at that business and I was like, she was doing so well in the practice, but then she ended up having some complications from the COVID vaccine. And she now couldn't practice as much as she was prior. So now great GI is procedural, right? They were making good money, even with her reduced capacity, but it was only her. She had MPs and PAs, but like in clinic, not doing the actual procedure. That was another one that I was like, I wish I could but I was like, think about it. Think about it. No, don't do that now. Doesn't fit the buy box. Don't do that. Yeah.
Hello, just to add something, each business is different from every business is different. Medical practice has changed a lot, where you can't really buy a practice and expect the patients to follow you because they can just choose to go elsewhere. And so that's why I don't think it follows the model of regular practice, because you can just buy a practice and patients will say, you know what, I can choose to go anywhere and I'll go wherever I want to go. It's a little bit different, but for someone like you in Arkansas, you're in a specialty where you're in a referral specialty. Primary care is actually a gold mine for you because you control a lot of things. But just to add that.
Yeah.
I'm trying, but it's a lot. You have to run the operation still.
Yes, but it's a gold mine for you. You're in a referral specialty, and I'm actually planning to incorporate a primary care in my own special. I'm a GI. GI, if you have built what you call like a small community, or even if it's like a multi-specialty, but primary care is a gold mine for anybody in any kind of referral special.
You can refer to yourself, essentially. That's what I can read.
Exactly.
There's a question about mentorship. What mentorship group do you recommend? Do you recommend even going that route, or what do you think?
So I've done quite a few so far. Last, November, I hosted a virtual event, a 3-day virtual event, and people were because like I said, I'm on a campaign, right? And I didn't even have like any offer or anything for them. I was going to maybe host a live event at some point. But those who attended were asking, is there a course? Is there a thing? And one of my mentors happened to be a speaker during the 3-day event. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, would you mind teaching like a 6-week class or something for this? And he agreed. So we are literally, tomorrow is Thursday, right? Tomorrow is our last day of the first cohort. Now, I've worked with him in the past and I've seen his results with his clients. And that was why I asked him. But he had shut his down. Okay, so now we have a smaller group that has started again. And he's actually now agreed to even do a more kind of ongoing thing after the main one. So the next one for that is going to be launching mid-March, end of March, starting of April. But if you're like, I put that link earlier in the chat to get, so you see his face on the page that I shared there. He's the one on that page there. But if you get that freebie, you'll get on our email list and you get to hear about it when next we open. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that, Kenneth.
And
Yeah.
there's a question
I mean,
about just your contact info if anyone wants to get in contact with you.
you still coach short-term rental, right? Or you shut that down?
So I still have the course available as a standalone thing. Because I'm not kidding when I say this is my we are focusing very heavily now on this right now. If somebody wants to buy short-term rental, my course is still there that they can buy and watch on their own time. People are still doing that. I still have my rentals, but I really like when I say that I really feel that for a lot of people that I work with, getting even just one business acquisition will be very transformative for them. And so that's where we're putting all our cylinders right now.
Okay.
That's-
Okay, you send
that's
your,
it.
okay, so I think contact information will be on your website also.
Yeah, I'll share with you my Facebook page. Facebook is where I hang. These amazing doctors here are LinkedIn gurus.
Well, but the LinkedIn
LinkedIn is
crew, I was
still
going
like
to
a
ask you.
bank to me.
I love LinkedIn. It's just everybody praise everybody. That was the problem with LinkedIn. All the comments is like, ooh, it was nice.
Amazing.
All
There's
the
no
AI.
negativity on LinkedIn. Nobody ever said anything bad.
Nobody says anything bad. But yeah, so I've just put my Facebook, whatever, in the chat there. If you want to reach out, that's the best way to reach me. I post I'm like, that's like my hub, okay? So definitely, and if you add me as a friend there, just send me a DM as well so that I just know that you were on here and I can associate the relationship. But yeah, that's my playground. That's where I have a lot of fun. I enjoy being on Facebook and hanging with people.
It's been, wow, almost 7:20, and you held everybody's attention.
Yep, still got a packed room.
I'm sure we're going to do more of this because I'm also focusing on this year and next year, trying to do a little bit more business acquisition. We even find a way to syndicate it if possible. We're just looking for other ways. Real estate is fun. We continue to do that, but we will try to diversify. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Anything else, George?
No, thank you again, Chiagozie. This was amazing. So we appreciate you a lot.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So it's always fun hanging out with you guys because you have a very like engaged and fun group to hang with.
Thanks everyone for coming. See you in the next 2 weeks. Okay. Take care.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank
Bye.
you.